Mohammed Alexander Russel Webb, also known as Alexander Russel Webb, was a trailblazing American Muslim who lived from 1846 to 1916. He was a talented journalist and diplomat who served as the U.S. Consul in the Philippines. He embraced Islam in 1889 after being inspired by the writings of an Indian Muslim leader. He is regarded by historians as the first notable Muslim convert from the original American settlers. He also had the unique honor of being the only Muslim delegate at the historic First Parliament of the World's Religions in 1893. Mohammed Alexander Russel Webb inherited his father's passion for journalism. His father, Alexander Nelson Webb, was a renowned reporter in his era and may have shaped his son's career. Webb got his basic education at the home school in Glendale, Massachusetts, and then went to Claverack College, a prestigious high school near Hudson, New York. He became the editor of the Unionville Republican, a newspaper in Unionville, Missouri. His skill as a journalist was quickly recognized, and he was offered the city editorship of the St. Joseph Gazette in St. Joseph, Missouri. He then became the associate editor of the Missouri Morning Journal. He later rose to the position of assistant city editor of the Missouri Republican in St. Louis, Missouri. While working for the Missouri Republican, he was selected by President Cleveland in September 1887 to be the U.S. Consul in the Philippines at the U.S. office in Manila. According to the editor of his book, The Three Lectures, he had abandoned any religious belief at least 15 years before that. Mohammed Alexander Russel Webb learned about Islam from the writings of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, India, the founder of the Ahmadiyya movement. Webb wrote 2 letters to Ghulam Ahmad, expressing his interest in Islam. These letters were published in Ghulam Ahmad's book Shan-e-Haq on pages 372 and 439. Webb had not met any Muslims yet, but a local Parsi businessman connected him with some Muslims in India. A newspaper publisher, Budruddin Abdullakur of Bombay, printed some of Webb's letters in his paper. A local businessman, Haji Abdullah Arab, a follower of Ghulam Ahmad, read these letters and traveled to Manila to meet Webb. In 1888, Webb officially became a Muslim. Webb later praised Ghulam Ahmad as a man of God and the one who had led him to Islam. Webb stayed in touch with Ahmadis until his death in 1916, but it is not clear from the Ahmadiyya literature if Webb was an Ahmadi Muslim or if his work supported the Ahmadiyya beliefs. Mohammed Alexander Russel Webb faced some opposition for his faith, but the American press that covered his work did not doubt his loyalty to his country, but called him the Yankee Muslim instead. Mohammed Alexander Russel Webb decided to travel around India and then go back to the U.S. to spread Islam. His wife, Ella G. Webb, and their 3 kids had also become Muslims by then. Haji Abdullah went back to India and collected money for Webb's trip. Webb visited 5 cities in India and gave talks in each one. In India, he often showed his disapproval of Westernization and its impact on the oppressed Muslims. He thought Muslims who were mindlessly copying the West, wearing its clothes and leaving their own as submissive and unworthy of their rich culture. He saw them as very far from a true Islamic spirit, saying, "The only Muslims in all the East who drink alcohol are those who have been taught in England and wear Western clothes. Their interaction with Christian countries has corrupted them, and they have abandoned their religion." Mohammed Alexander Russel Webb went to Egypt and Turkey in 1892, where he could learn more about Islam. He quit his job with the State Department in 1893 while he was in Istanbul and came back to America. Mohammed Alexander Russel Webb moved to New York and started the Oriental Publishing Company at 1122 Upper Broadway. Mohammed Alexander Russel Webb also launched the Journal of the American Muslim Propagation Movement, called Muslim World. The first issue came out on May 12, 1893, and was devoted to the interests of the American Islamic propaganda and to share the message of Islam in America. It continued for 7 months, May to November 1893. Webb was the main speaker for Islam at the 1893 World Parliament of Religions in Chicago. He gave 2 speeches on September 20th and 21, 1893. His speeches were titled, "The Influence of Social Condition and the Spirit of Islam," and were printed in the big 2-volume Proceedings of the Parliament, called the First World's Parliament of Religions, 1894. "I believe in the American mind, in the American wisdom, and in the American sense of justice, and I challenge any smart man to learn about Islam and not admire it." Mohammed Alexander Russel Webb, in the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago speech. Mohammed Alexander Russel Webb remained the leading advocate for Islam in America for the rest of his life. He spoke on the Islamic faith to many of America's most influential thinkers, including Mark Twain. Mohammed Alexander Russel Webb opened a brief mosque, on Broadway in Manhattan. The reasons for the closure of this masjid are unclear, but it may have been because of a shortage of financial support from India. He also started study circles in 8 cities in America. They were called Mecca, Study Circle Number 1, NYC, Quran Study Circle, Capital Study Circle Number 4, and so on. Each had an Islamic city or reference in its name. They probably studied Webb's works and his recommendations. The last meeting was in 1943 in Manhattan, and his daughter Aliyah was there. He was also famous for his work as a writer. He wrote 2 booklets about the massacre of Armenians from a Muslim perspective, The Armenian Troubles and Where the Responsibility Lies, and a few facts about Turkey, under the rule of Abdul Hamid sect. He was made the honorary Turkish consul in New York by Sultan Abdul Hamid II. Webb showed him his plans for a Muslim cemetery and masjid, and the Sultan praised him for them, but those plans never happened. He lived in Rutherford, New Jersey from 1898 until his death on October 1, 1916, at the age of 69. He owned and edited the Rutherford Times. He was buried in Hillside Cemetery, Lyndhurst, on the edge of Rutherford. This video has come to an end, but the story of the converts in this video is not over yet. They have inspired us with their journey of faith and courage. Stay tuned for the next episode, where we will explore more amazing stories of people who embraced Islam. See you soon.